Happy Tuesday. It's another Imperfect Action live stream. We are here. We are live. We are doing the Imperfect Action live stream. If you're wondering what you are watching the Imperfect Action live stream. Who am I? Hey, I am Rob Fenstermaker, your host. I'm a former corporate burnout survivor turned kingdom builder. And I want to help you and empower you to build your kingdom as well. Because what that kingdom represents is you living that life of significance. I want to take people on that journey to help them to become the best version of who they can be. And that's what kingdom building is all about. Just get a couple things out of the way here. This Friday is another virtual Friday whiskey hour. If you've never attended the virtual Friday whiskey hour, you need to stop by and attend. You know, some people said, "Hey, I don't drink whiskey, so I don't want to." We don't just sit around and drink whiskey. We actually have conversations. Our last conversation, we talked about happiness versus joy. So go ahead and stop by. What a great, better way to end your work week than spending time with others. Also, this is a two for this week on the Imperfect Action live stream. I have another one scheduled tomorrow at 2 o'clock Eastern time. Go ahead and stop by and enjoy the fun, enjoy the conversation of the Imperfect Action live stream, because you know what? Stop waiting for the perfect time to take action. So I'm here to share something with you. It doesn't exist. Just do it. Don't worry about it. Don't think about it. Just take the action. That's what's important. I call it imperfect action because you know what? You learn more about yourself when you do those. You learn about your ability. You learn about what you can accomplish when you just take the action. That's why imperfect action is the best action to take. There we are. So my guest today, Nikki Gangemi. And you told me to say, because you are a gem, that I have to say Gangemi, right?
Yes.
Nikki Gangemi. Yes. So Nick, I know Nikki, we met at a couple of events, and you know I invited you to come on the Imperfect Action live stream, and hey, you accepted that invitation. Here we are. We are ready to do some imperfect action and just share that imperfect action as how it's shaped our lives and where we've become. So thank you for taking the time to stop by, Nikki.
You're welcome. Thank you, Rob, for having me here. I love this topic. I feel like I've really leaned into imperfect action, being a former perfectionist. It certainly was not comfortable, and I'm learning to let it feel comfortable.
Yeah, perfectionism.
Mm.
Yeah, you know, I would never say I would embrace the perfectionism, but I've talked to a lot of people that they said were they were perfectionists, and the one common denominator I've heard from people that have said they're perfectionists is that they just never do anything because they need to line everything up and just be perfect. Would that about summarize? You know, when you said you were that perfectionist, would that summarize what was going on?
Yeah, that summarizes part of it. Yeah, where it's like you're waiting to
Yeah,
have all your ducks in a row. Everything has to be just right before you have that courage to take the leap. And another part of it, which ended up being like people talk about getting in their own way. One way
yeah.
perfectionists do that is setting the bar so high, they feel like
Mm.
they just never really achieve anything. And they're so hard
Yeah.
so hard on themselves. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I could be hard on myself because I think a lot of people, when we're trying to achieve things, we want to be hard on ourselves. But sometimes you got to be careful, especially with the words you use when you're hard on yourself. Because you know, I know for me, there's times and when I can use words about myself that I would never say to anybody else. And
Oh,
you got to be
totally.
careful about that.
Yeah,
You got to guard yourself against that.
you do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
Because you start using those words, you start believing those lies you're telling yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. Especially when you tell yourself the same thing over and over again. It's like you hypnotized yourself, and the work is in unhypnotizing yourself and
Yes.
changing those programs that really are more hurtful than helpful.
Yeah, and you know, we all get in that space, and you know, we can get out of it. You know, it's at least from my experience, it's never you never turn it on a dime. You got to do it. You got to, but there's this gradual change. But once you start doing it, you get there a lot quicker than what you got into that space. But you got to do something to get out of that funk or whatever you want to call it. You got to
Yeah.
be intentional about it.
You've got to be
Now,
intentional.
before we you got to be intentional. That's the important thing. You have to be intentional. You have to be intentional. Now, I know before we logged on here, you shared some of your imperfect action, things that um, you did in your life that you talked about. You heard people say that when you jump, that net's going to be there, and you did the jump. You absolutely did a jump. So share that with us. What was that big jump you did?
I did. So first I want to say I'm also a recovering literal listener. I had that bad where people would tell me something and I believed it literally, like
Yeah.
leap and the net will appear. So part of my decision in resigning from my 15-year career as an elementary school teacher was thinking I don't have to wait till I have all my ducks in a row because I'll be waiting forever. And 15 years of
Yeah.
doing something that was never your dream to begin with was long enough to of that chunk of time in your life. So I said, I heard that there is this net, and when I leap, it will appear and save me. So I'm
Yeah.
going to resign, and that was 5 years ago. But
Yeah.
yeah, that imperfect action, that was one example. The other one was my first dream was of being an actress. That was something I always wanted from the time I was a little girl. I
Okay.
just loved being anybody but me. I didn't like the content in my
Yeah.
mind, the thoughts, how I felt in my own skin. So give me a role to play, and great. That was relief to be somebody else. And
Yeah.
that dream was something I pursued after college, moved across the country. How imperfect it was I was in a 5-year relationship, and when the guy ended it, I didn't know who I was without him. I mean, I had spent 7 days a week with him. It's, oh my
Yeah.
God, who am I now? Let me start again. Let me just move across the country and give this career a shot. And
Yeah.
without having any plans, I just did it. So that was an example of taking an imperfect action. And then I gave up. I literally gave myself 1 year, didn't believe in myself, came back home, and it's like, now what do I do? And that's when I followed other people's dreams who were saying, be a teacher, it's this rewarding
Yeah.
career. And, I said yes to something that was a no for me.
Yeah. Yeah. So you were living other people's dream
Yeah.
to be a teacher. Yeah.
Yes.
And I see a lot of people that they go to college or whatever it may be because to be a lawyer, to be a doctor, be whatever it is, because my dad was a doctor, his dad was a doctor, his dad was a doctor. So darn it, I'm going to be a doctor, and they do it and they hate it because they're
Yeah.
living somebody else's dream. I do have to ask though, did you get any acting gigs?
Nothing to speak of. So
Okay.
it was interesting because I grew up very much just sheltered. I mean, oldest
Yeah.
of four, being a female, there was a short leash. It was like my parents were very protective. And so for
Yeah.
me to move across the country, it was a huge deal. I was 23 years old, and that was the first time it was like I was on my own, doing my own food shopping and laundry and paying the bills. It was a totally new game for me. And so I spent most of my
Yeah.
time working to make money, and I took some acting classes. I did some extra work, I did some auditions, but the only thing I ever really was in was extra work. I did, though,
Yeah.
accomplish something that many actors, it takes them years to do, and that is to get their SAG eligibility. And I
Okay.
manifested. It takes years, and I manifested getting 3 SAG vouchers in 3 days of extra work. So I basically, through a connection, showed up on the set of City of Angels, a show back in 2003, and I got my
Yeah.
voucher at the end of each day. And then I was told, do not repeat that to any other actor because they will want to kill you. I said, well, then I'm keeping it secret until now.
I have an acting background, so I got to share this with you. When I was 7 years old, I appeared in a fast food commercial for Burger Chef. 7 years
Really?
old. My acting career never went beyond that. All I did was I appeared in a commercial for Burger Chef. If you remember Burger Chef back in the day, so yeah, I remember that. It was a fun event. You're 7 years old. You get to spend all day away from school doing this commercial. I don't know how many cheeseburgers I ate that day. But yes, Burger Chef, and then there's that commercial. I've tried to find this on YouTube. I have really, really tried to find this on YouTube. I can't find it. but it's got to be somewhere out there. At some point, maybe I'll
Oh,
find it. If there's
sure.
anybody out there who knows how to find Burger Chef commercials, please, DM me because I got to find this at some point.
I'm going to look for it.
Yeah, let's look for it. If people doubt, well, if you can't produce the YouTube, then it doesn't exist. But I have the pay stub, so there you go.
There
I
you
do have
go.
the pay stub. My mom did save that for my 7 years old. I got to save that pay stub. I remember looking at that pay stub, and they take out all the deductions. I'm like, even at 7 years old, I'm like, starting. Well, wait, what's all? I didn't understand. So my parents had to explain me what all those deductions were and where that money went to. So
Yeah. So did you just stop after that? After doing the
well,
course?
yeah, it was a commercial. I was a commercial. Now I did appear in a high school play, West Side Story. I played one of the
Oh,
sharks. I had a couple speaking lines in that play, but nothing of significance. But yeah, so there you go. That's my acting career.
that's cool.
Burger Chef
West Side
and
Story.
high school West Side Story, where I played one of the sharks, just
Yeah,
a
and I
nameless
was
shark.
on the other team. In college, I was one of the Jets in
Okay.
West Side Story. We have that in common. Look at that. How funny.
Yeah, there you go. West Side Story. Now I didn't have to sing, but I had to dance. I did have
Yeah,
to dance. There was no singing in my character, but I did have some dancing in that one.
yeah. There was a lot of dancing. I actually got, I had the part of, well, I ended up, I was the lead Jet, and there was a lot of dancing, and I didn't have a strong enough dance background to keep up. So they demoted me to playing Graziella because I was more in the back.
So there were female jets because in the
Yes,
original West Side Story, all the jets and the sharks, they were all men. Now there was
really?
some
Oh no,
women in it.
no, there were women.
Yeah, if you go back and look at the original, I mean the Hollywood production, all the jets and all the sharks were men. There were women. Let's see, Natalie Wood and Rita Moreno were the two main women in the Hollywood production. So,
Right.
as I recall. But,
Interesting.
all right, we have totally digressed on this conversation. Going up, but I want to talk about you and I are kind of a lot in the same space. We kind of do some different thing. The same thing. One of the things you wanted to talk about is mindset. So let's talk about mindset. When you hear the term mindset and you're working with your clients, um, what's that look like to you?
When I'm working with my clients, mindset looks like layers beyond just your thoughts, like the content in your mind. It really goes deep. We look at the behaviors,
Mhm.
like the actions that we take, and many people focus on changing their behavior or their action. And then they have, the 2 step forwards, 2 step back. So when I work with
Yeah,
people, we get to the deeper layers of the mindset. What capabilities do you think that you have? Can you tap into more capabilities? Because we're so much more capable than we think we are. And then getting to the level of beliefs, what is it that you believe about yourself, and taking those limiting beliefs and transforming them into empowering beliefs. And then we go into your values, what's important to you, because that's really our
yeah,
natural motivation. If you want to put motivation in a bottle, work from what's important to you and what you value, because that will always drive your
yeah.
behavior.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have never really. I call it your truths. I mean, what are your truths? Because I think a lot of people have never really taken the time to. What is it I really believe in? They just believe in something because everybody else believes it. Everybody in my family believes it, or everybody in my neighborhood believes it. Everybody at work believes it. Everybody I met at the grocery store believes it. Everybody I go to church with believes it. So I'm going to believe it. But it's got to serve you. If you're believing it, it's got to serve you in some way.
That's right.
Because one of the things I think is absolutely true is life's going to happen. No one's immune from that. And when you have a solid set of your core beliefs, when life happens, you're able to withstand that storm.
Exactly. Yeah. And believe it or not, we have beliefs that don't serve us in actuality, but for some
Yeah.
reason we hold on to them. And a lot of times it's just they're familiar, they're what we know, or like you said, we take the beliefs of other people,
Yeah.
family, parents, and we just believe it's such a part of the programming because it's been there for so
Yeah.
many years. So getting people to loosen the grip, because our beliefs are
Hmm.
our convictions, right? getting the person to loosen the grip and be willing to believe something different. And then working with
Yeah.
their identity, like everything they put after I am. And when we can change that, it's
Yeah.
like that trickle down effect where suddenly they take different actions, their behaviors change, new habits.
Yeah. I love you. I am. I think I am statements are powerful. And, I did I've had a couple of clients who I've worked with, and I challenged them, just start writing I am statements about yourself. So I did it myself. If I'm telling them to do it, I'm going to do it. So I
Mhm.
went, I think it was 21 days straight, just writing I am statements. That's all I did in the morning. I get up, I would start writing I am statements. And, the challenge for me was not to keep writing the same I am statement, write something different, write something different each and every day of an I am statement. So, I am powerful. I am, a man of integrity, just those type of things. Because I think there's absolutely power in that. Because it does help to create that mindset. That I like to say we have that battlefield we've got to fight each and every day, and that battlefield exists in that 6-inch space between our ears.
Yes.
And you've got to engage it each and every day. And if you, I mean, there's days you're going to win the battle, and there's maybe some days you're just going to really kind of struggle through that battle. That's just part of life. But when I like to say, when you know who you are and whose you are, it makes all the difference.
Oh, I love that. Whose you are and whose you are. Yeah. Knowing who you are at your core and
Yes.
being okay with that and, you know,
Yeah.
letting that
Yeah.
shine, right? Unapologetically without worrying, that one of the things that I've worked through and I help others too, it's letting go of the, like what's behind the mask, the fear of rejection
Yeah.
and criticism and being called out and, just like releasing that and letting that go so you could really just live from your core.
Yeah. That core is powerful. I exercise. And I'm very active. But when I exercise, what I focus on is my physical core because that supports everything that I do. I run, I lift weights, I bike, but I got to have a strong physical core. And it's just like we got to have a strong core of our life if we want to get through it, as it makes life, so much more empowering when
Yeah.
those life events happen. And those life events, when I think back of some of the life events that I had that have shaped me and marked me of who I am, some of them have been not enjoyable, and they've been not enjoyable to go through at all. But once you get through it, you realize that person who you're becoming. You realize, you start to understand that this is part of my story. Story's powerful. I love story.
It
And
is.
we've got our life is a story. A lot of people don't realize that our life is a story, and that story never ends. That story, well, it's going to end at some point. We
Right.
only got a finite time in this life, but we can continue to add those chapters to our story, and that's what is important to me. I never want to get in that space where I'm just like kind of check out and like, all right, I'm done. I'm done with life.
Yeah, I love that metaphor of our life being a story and we, could turn the page and we can move on to a new chapter.
Yeah.
Something you said about the core and working out, and I was just thinking of another, it reminded me another way to really change is to do something completely new, like change your environment. And that was something that I did. I used to always be into Pilates and yoga and that type of
Mhm.
exercise. And then I went
Yeah.
to a Max Challenge gym and it's a totally different kind of exercise. It's just like
Yeah.
real, like loud, fast pace. And I had said to the owner, I can't do this. This is not my type of workout. And she somehow convinced
Yeah.
me to do it. And I have been in the best shape of my life. And I really
Oh yeah.
feel so strong in my body. And I also changed at the level of identity. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Now I can say things like I am healthy, fit, and strong. And something about taking different action, putting yourself in a different environment with new and like minded people that really helps
Mhm.
you to transform.
Yeah. And I love what you said there. The people we surround ourselves with.
Yeah.
Um, that's I mean, it's been said. I think there's a lot of truth to it. The 5 or 10 people we spend the most time with. That's who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you want to become better, start hanging around better people. Start hanging around people that are going to force you to go up to that other level. I also like the phrase that if you're the smartest person in the room, it's time to find another room.
That's
And
right.
I agree with that.
That's
I
right.
agree with that.
Yes.
We've got to be willing to challenge ourselves. And I think that's a lot of where the mindset comes into, is
Mm-hmm.
challenging ourselves to go to that next level, to become that, that person we really desire to be.
Yeah. One of the sayings at the Max gym, they've got all these different positive sayings on the walls. And one of them is, what doesn't challenge you won't change you. So we've got to be challenged. It's like the chrysalis inside, or the caterpillar inside of the chrysalis. And
Mhm.
it kind of struggles, right? As it makes its way
Yeah.
out, that beautiful butterfly that comes out on the other side. Like you were saying earlier, there's going to be challenges and obstacles, and they're part of the process.
Yeah. You talk about the struggle it has to go through. And I've read that if you actually pull it out without it going through that struggle, it's never going to create
Yeah.
the wings it needs to fly. So
Right.
that's part of, it becoming that butterfly. It has to go through that struggle. It has to go through whatever you want to call it, suffering, whatever you want to call it. You have to
Mm-hmm.
go through that. Because, like I said, some of the things I've gone through, it defines who I am. And you mentioned something else, identity. Identity is so important. And, for men, I believe that I've seen a lot of men. I was as guilty as this as well. We wrap ourselves around this 9 to 5 identity,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been through 3 corporate downsizings. And when that rug gets pulled out from underneath you, even though I knew the first one was coming, it was pretty obvious it was coming. But when you walk in the office that day, and there's HR to greet you, and they hand you a packet and march you to the conference room, you're like, "Oh, crap, here we go." But I struggled going through that. It's about a good 2 or 3 year struggle, really trying to figure out, what my identity was.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of at least what I've seen, maybe you can, to tell me if I'm wrong on this, I think women do the same way, maybe not around 9 to 5, but I've seen a lot of women, they create their identity around their children. And when it's time for those children to leave the nest, they're like, what do I do now?
Oh, yeah.
I'm lost. I don't know what to do.
Yeah, I haven't experienced that myself. I don't have kids, but I've seen it happen with other women who are mothers, and they've
Yeah.
built their life around taking care of others and their children, that when they children do grow up and become independent and leave, it's kind of like that, well, who am I without these
Yeah.
kids? I experienced it in a different way. Mine was with that breakup. It was like, who am I without him?
Yeah.
Spent 7 days a week for 5 years. Now what?
Yeah.
So there is
Yeah.
that identity crisis. People's details are different, but that's a universal thing. Who am I without this? And then having to recreate yourself, reinvent yourself.
Yeah. 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 All right.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to talk about manifestation, because you had mentioned that's a manifestation. And I think of, when I think of manifestation, I think you're trying to make things happen, be intentional, and make things happen. Think it or believe it, think it, whatever you want to say, and step into it. Kind of share with me when you say manifestation, as you're taking your clients on that journey for them to manifest, what it is they want to be or what it is they want to become. What's that look like?
So the first thing that comes to mind for me is manifestation. Well, we're always manifesting. More of the
Mhm.
time, we're probably manifesting what we don't want than what we do want. In my personal experience, when I have manifest what I wanted, it came from just a space of allowing. There was no force. There was more flow. Take, for example,
Yeah.
those 3 SAG vouchers. I mean, that was so easy. It wasn't something that I said that I wanted and I pushed for and I made it my focus. It was just like a lightly held intention that I'm going out to LA. I want to pursue this dream that I have inside of me. I'd love to make a living at this, make money doing what I love. How great that would be. And then it's like the universe, orchestrates, it moves the right people and players into your life, and things unfold. So for me, when I'm trying too hard, then it's like when I become aware of that, it's time to stop and just kind of lean
Yeah.
back. and set the lightly held intention, and be open to it coming in different ways. Because another thing, sometimes we have such a fixed mindset where we're like, this is how it has to happen. And then we close ourselves off. It's like the hose. It's like squeezing the hose and the water can't come through. So we like cut off the supply. So with manifesting what you want, there's putting an intention and having like holding it lightly instead of that hard grip. And then leaning back and just keeping your eyes wide open for all the ways that it can come. If that makes sense.
Yeah. It does make sense, because we make plans, we make these dreams of what we want to do with our life, and maybe it doesn't really necessarily happen the way we had envisioned, but it can still happen.
Yes.
We have these dreams of what we want to do, and there's no guarantee it's going to go perfect. Because it's there. I'll say this: it's a guarantee it's not going to go as you perfectly plan. Things are going to happen. Life's going to happen. You're going to get thrown off course. But when you have clarity, and I think when you have that manifestation, you're clear on that. You can recharge or recalibrate to get back on course. And part of that, getting thrown off course. Again, let's go back to that story. That's part of the story. That's that one of those chapters in your life. Because it's the challenges you face to you realize what it is you want to accomplish.
Yes. And you mentioned the word clarity, and it made me think of one way that I work with clients also is people tend to be very clear on what they don't want, and helping people to embrace the contrast, because when you're experiencing what you don't want, that contrast, that just helps you to get more clear on what I don't want. So I'll say, great. Now that you know that you don't want this, what do you want? What does that look like, sound like, and feel like? And it's a matter of helping them just to move their focus. I've said, and I don't know that other people have said this, but it's just something that I am aware of now, is that, we'll say, oh, I have a problem with money, or I've got this problem. It's like everybody has a focus problem. It comes down to focus. What are you focused on? And when we could move our focus and then be more deliberate and intentional in what we want to create, that's where we start to see some shifts and better results.
Yeah. Okay. What you focus on, that's what you're going to, it's just like, driving a car.
Yeah.
You're focused on the wall. You know what? You're taking that car right into the wall. I've heard that when, race car drivers, when they spin out, they don't look at the wall. They keep their focus on what's straight ahead to try and steer the car out. And the same thing. What are your focus on? If you're focused on the wall, you're going to crash into the wall. You're going to crash and burn. But you got to be clear on what it is you want to accomplish.
Yes.
And I like to say, just that's your main thing. Whatever your main thing is, keep your main thing as your main thing. And that will keep you on track. That'll keep you manifested on what it was. And, I think there is power in it. I'm sure you've heard the story of Jim Carrey, where he was a struggling actor. He wrote himself a check for $20 million, and he kept it in his wallet all the time until that day finally arrived when he got an acting contract worth $20 million.
Yes, I love that. I love that story. And it speaks to that. It's like putting your focus on what you want and being flexible in it too, because that's the thing with that control, that we want it to be a certain way and look a certain way. And when we could remain flexible, we're so much stronger. It's like the palm tree. The palm tree usually can withstand a storm because it just bends sometimes all the way, but then it comes back. So when you could be flexible and bend, you can come out, you're strong, and you can come out on the other side.
Yeah, I got to see that firsthand, about a year and a half ago, because, I'm in Southwest Florida, and we had Hurricane Ian come through, and we've got two palm trees in our front yard. I don't know, they're about 60, 70 feet high. Wow. And I had about a space about this much I could look out during that storm, but I could see those palm trees, and they were bent over like this as that wind was whipping through. And I'm thinking, oh, those things are going to go. Got up the next morning, they're still standing strong.
Because of that flexibility. And when we're rigid and like stiff in our thinking, that's where we can more easily break because we don't have that flexibility. So practicing flexibility is it's strength that you could develop as well to help you.
It is. And, I mentioned flexibility. That's important. I enjoy running. Taking a little bit of a break right now. That's another story. But I'm taking a little bit of a break from running. My wife and I, we recently ran a marathon here a few weeks back. But the only way to get through it, you've got to be flexible. You've got to, keep stretching your body, keep loosening, keep your body limber. Otherwise, you're not going to do it. And it's the same with life. There's a lot of life lessons in that.
Mm-hmm.
And anything we want to do, people ask me, I'm 60 years old. People said, well, how can you run a marathon at 60? I mean, how do you do it? I say it's simple. You just keep putting one foot in front of the other until you reach the finish line. And eventually you get there. And that's what
Right.
life's about. You just got to keep putting one foot in front of the other, one action step in front of the other,
Yeah.
one imperfect action step in front of the other. And eventually, those imperfect action steps you start taking, they start getting better. They start getting more clear. They start getting you to that destination. And that's what it's about. You have to do it. You just got to take the action. Stop thinking, just do it.
That's right. And flexibility in your thinking. That person that was like, you're 60 years old, you're going to run a marathon. That's an example of a rigid belief that could really just kind of hold you in place. But thinking outside of that, well, I wonder what it would look like to run a marathon at 60 and being
Yeah.
open to it, flexibility in your beliefs.
Yeah. And isn't it like I just woke up one morning, like, I'm going to go run a marathon? It took me 6 months to train for that so I can run a marathon.
Right.
So there's process in it. And it's just like life. You've got to train in life. You've got to train for the eventualities that are going to happen. You have to prepare your mind. You have to prepare your body. You have to prepare your mindset
right
for when things happen.
Right. And going back to the I am statements, I am a marathon runner or whatever you want to say. One thing that helps me, and I've shared it with clients, is when you can't fully stand behind the I am yet, like if you were to say, I am wealthy or I am this, and you don't really believe it, you can use a transition phrase like I'm in the process of, or I'm beginning to. So you can say, I'm in the process of becoming wealthy that way, because it's more important that you could stand behind it and believe in it.
Yeah.
That's more important. So sometimes we need a little bridge to carry us over from where we are to where we want to be.
Interesting. Okay. So, okay.
Does that make sense? To say,
it makes sense. It makes sense. But I think it's also, when I hear that, you're kind of maybe accepting a little reality. And I don't, I think when you start accepting too much reality, then you're just kind of going to be, all right, I'm never going to be that person that can run a marathon. I'm never going to be that person that can be a millionaire. I'm never, well, why? Well, why? If you're creating, why? I mean, you have the opportunity each and every day to do something.
right.
So what's this? Who's to say that you cannot be that person? Because I think you're believing the lies, and it kind of circles back to that mindset.
Right.
But creating that manifested mindset, I think is what can propel you and take you to another level.
Right. And it's different for everybody. And that's why I always say, it's like a pair of shoes or an outfit. Try it on and see how it feels. I always offer a reframe to people, but it might not be a fit for everybody. I'm in the process, or I'm beginning to help some people feel like, okay, I could stand behind this. I'm not putting lipstick on a pig. I'm not just feeding myself lip service. But for some people, they might feel good about that. It's like the reframe of I have to versus I get to. A lot of times when we say I have to do something, there's this like, I have to, like this heaviness. And when I offered this reframe to somebody in one of my classes, he said he tried it on. He goes, I get to. I get to whatever, something he was working on, a chore, a task on his to-do list. He goes, you know what, Nikki? I have to motivates me, because when I have to do something, that's when I know it's time to do it. So I'm going to keep I have to versus I get to. And I said, well, that's very interesting. It's an interesting perspective.
Yeah, interesting.
So it comes down to what is it for that person? So I always say, try it on. How does it feel? If it doesn't feel good, we got to put on something else.
Yeah, I think back, I shared as we start here, I'm a corporate burnout survivor, and I can think back to those corporate days where you're like, I have to go to work today. I
Yeah.
have to go to work today. But, there was also days that, hey, I get to go to work today.
Hmm.
And it's different. To me, yeah, that's interesting that he was able to do that. Um,
Yeah, because for him, he knew himself enough that he said, have to. He said, I know it's time to take the action when I have to do it. So what motivated
yeah,
him was the have to. That that actually demotivates many people,
yeah,
but for
yeah,
him,
yeah,
it motivated him. So
yeah, 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 yeah. I can just think of my time in corporate. Have to versus get to. But you know what? What we get to do this Friday, I'm going to do a little shameless plug again. The virtual Friday whiskey hour is coming this Friday. If you've never attended, you've got to stop by. Next Tuesday, I host the Iron Sharpens Iron community. It's another event that I host on Tuesdays. If I'm not doing the Imperfect Action live stream, I do host the Iron Sharpens Iron community where I bring people together and we get to have a conversation. So enough of my shameless plugging.
I love it.
So I want to talk about your calm method. So as the way we have calm here, I think each letter represents something. So let's kind of delve into this a little bit.
Yes, I would love to. The calm method was an inspired idea that came out of a little bit of an obstacle, I would say. Somebody hired me to do a money mindset training. It was a jewelry company. And I
Okay.
had the whole workshop planned 2 days before I get a call. The woman was saying, money mindset is no longer appropriate. It was March 2020. The world had just shut down. And she said, these women are scared. There's so much uncertainty. Can
Yeah,
you please just help them with that? And I'm like, sure.
yeah,
And then I struggled trying to come up with an idea in 2 days. And I said, I'm going to practice what I preach. I'm going to go to sleep and set the intention that I will wake up with the just right idea for these women. And when I woke up the
okay.
next morning, I saw the word calm, and each letter stood for a step for how to go from that chaos in your mind to clarity and then the confidence to take action. And that's how it was born.
Okay. So what's okay? So clarity, competence, and confidence. Is that what clarity
To
and
go from chaos to clarity and confidence. So I could tell you what the letters stand for, just real high level.
well,
Yeah.
absolutely
Okay.
that'd be fantastic.
So good. So calm, it's basically a four-step framework. And the C in calm is to become conscious of how you feel. A lot of times there's so many thoughts circulating in
Mhm.
our mind, we really can't pinpoint a thought, but if we stop and tune into how we feel, we pretty much know how we feel. We can say, I
Mhm.
feel overwhelmed or anxious or nervous. So conscious of how you're feeling. And then allow yourself to process that emotion by simply breathing, taking some mindful breaths, whether it's four square breathing, 7-Eleven breathing. Just let it be there like a friend. Invite in the overwhelm. Hello, overwhelm. Come have a seat. You've got a minute. You've got 2 minutes. And just let it be there instead of pushing it away, which really just fuels it. The
Yeah.
A is to become aware of the thoughts you're thinking. Typically, thoughts
Mhm.
precede emotion. So, what thought is triggering this emotion? And get it out of your head and put it on paper. Write it down so you could see it. And be like a lawyer and put those thoughts on trial by asking yourself, are these facts? These thoughts, are they facts? Or are they beliefs, interpretations, projections, fears? And then once you realize that they're not facts, typically they're not facts,
Mhm.
you move into the L, which is lean into what else is possible. So, what's another option? If this thought is not true, what might be? And that's where you practice
Yeah.
flexibility. And then you write down the new thoughts, the new empowering thoughts, and then the M is make a new decision. So looking at these new thoughts, what is my new decision that I'm making about this
Mhm.
situation or this circumstance? And then take immediate action on that inspired idea so you can move
Yeah.
forward. You can have some movement.
You wrote a book about this.
I did. I put it into a
Okay.
book, The Calm Method. It's the inner game to getting the results you want. And in it, I share, it's a lot of stories that I share. So it could be tangible, like how can I use the calm method in real life? So I share people's stories, and we get into a lot about mindset and how to let go of your past, how to let go of who you are, which could be really hard. I had somebody that I worked with that wanted to let go of anxiety. And he had a really hard time because he said, it's so much of who I am that if you helped me to let this go, who would I be without the anxiety? He's like, I feel like you'd be taking away an arm because it's a part of me. So I do share about how do you let go and then on a new identity that's gonna.
I can't think about having anxious thoughts, and if I get rid of my anxiety, who am I? that's just like a perpetual. You're never going to get out of it. To have anxious thoughts about if I were able to get rid of this anxiety, who do I become?
Yeah, and that's just one example. Somebody could. I know for myself, for a while, I have been single more than I've been in a relationship. And it was really uncomfortable at one time to be single. I felt that loneliness. Over time, I became more familiar with it. So it became a comfort. So now the opposite of that, it could be uncomfortable. So it's kind of like when you see yourself a certain way, if you're to let that go, it's almost like you're admitting that how you operated has been a lie, and there's a lot of responsibility you have to take for the results that you got. So sometimes it's easier to cling on to things because then you don't have to take responsibility. That's just been my experience. However, when you lean into it and you take ownership and you say, I have these results because of the choices that I've made, that puts you in the driver's seat to make new choices and to get the results that you want. So like that caterpillar, it's a little uncomfortable inside of the cocoon, but once you bust through and you got the blood flowing through the wings, you can fly.
So if someone wants to get a copy of your book, how would they do that?
They can go right to my website. They can go right to nikkigangemi.com. You can get the book right from there. It'll take you to Amazon. That's where the book is.
Okay.
It comes in both Kindle ebook and soft cover. Yeah.
Okay. How long did it take you to write that book? How long did it take you?
Well, when I started and when I finished are two different stories. That was 2 years. But when I just sat down and worked on it, I would say it took a total of 4 months from idea to.
That's when you got serious about it. Okay.
When I got serious about it, I made it a focus, made it a priority. Yeah, it was a fun process, and it was. Yeah.
That's fine. Yeah, I like it. At some point, I've written my book. Actually, my book is sitting on my bookshelf, and the 25 moleskins that I've had that I've used to journal for the past 20 or 25 years. So there's my book. At some point,
that's how I started.
Pull them off.
Yes, I look through.
At some point, I've got to do it. I know I have to do it. And to me, I talk about leave your legacy. What's your legacy? So there's an opportunity for me to leave my legacy. So I got to start talking the talk and walking the walk. That my book is there. I just got to do it.
It's totally there. And that's exactly what I did. I opened up some journals and then I put little Post-it notes. Ooh, this story that I share, there's a powerful lesson in here that's universal that I think can help others. And that's how I started. And then I started putting those into a Google Doc. That's how the book started. I opened up a doc and I just started typing.
Yeah. At some point, and I know at some point I have to do it because people have asked me, and I'm just like, well, okay. I'm also one, I don't want to put too much on my plate as well because I could be good at getting so much stuff on my plate that you're just like, all right, I got so much stuff here. I'm getting nothing accomplished because I've got too much stuff. And one of the most powerful things that I've always been able to do is just go through an inventory. Is this serving me at this? And I've had to take good things off. Not everything I'm taking off is bad. I've taken things that were really good, but they weren't serving me in the same way when I added them onto there. So I just got to be intentional about it. And, like I said, I've got to do it. I know I've got to do it. That's my opportunity. And I've had several people challenge me to do it. And I'm like, okay, all right. I give them lip service, but at some point I know I know it needs to get done. It needs to get done.
Yeah. What's the feeling? I'm just curious behind it when people say you got to do this and then, do the book, write the book. What's the feeling that you get?
Well, the feeling is I know I need to, just for me, just for,
For you?
to me to get past that. I've said that for years, and it's time to just move past that, up that whatever's holding me back on that, and just break through that and just do it. The feeling is that, okay, I know it's work. I have to be very intentional about it and plan it out accordingly. And I can tend to be a little bit of the fly by the seat of your pants type of
Mhm.
person.
Right.
I know it drives my wife crazy, but I've just always been that. I've been fly by the seat of your pants. I'm able to write my goals out and get through them and accomplish what it is I want to do. And that's probably, and I know that's a goal I really need to set out and write and just give myself a deadline. Put that flag in the ground and say it's going to be done by this point in time. I am good at that. I give myself a deadline. I do accomplish things when I say they're going to get done.
Good. Yeah. I guess you have integrity with yourself. You say you're going to do something,
Yes.
and then you do it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You just do it. That's it. You got to be a man of your word. Say what you mean and mean what you say. If you're going to do it,
Mm-hmm.
do it. And I absolutely believe that. And
Yeah.
said, if I commit that I'm going to get something done, it will get done.
Right.
Now,
Exactly.
um, it will get done. So I just need to make that commitment, and I just need to give myself, it's I don't want to beat myself up about it as well, because sometimes we got to give ourselves a little bit of grace.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And have I done it? Have I written that book yet? No. Do I lay awake night thinking about why haven't? No, I don't do that either. But for me, if I put it out there, it gives me something to focus on. It gives me something to accomplish. It gives me uh, another sense of purpose.
Yeah.
And the cool thing with about what you and I do when you have a book and you get to go opportunities to go speak at wherever. Oh, by the way, here's this book I have.
Right.
You can purchase, for $20, whatever the case may be, whatever you want to charge, for those that were, felt motivated by what it is you had to speak about.
Oh, yeah. It's like a useful business card, your book.
It is.
Mhm.
Exactly. That's it. It's a useful business card. I like that. I like the way you put that.
Yes, and with the writing of the book, and for anybody else that's listening that maybe is not looking to write a book, the same concept applies of just getting started with one small step. Why it took 2 years from start to finish mostly is there was a lot of not doing because I would think, oh, I got to put the time in. I don't have the
Mhm.
time, all that. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to commit to just writing a word or just writing a sentence. Sometimes I would just open up the Google Doc that I had saved as the Com Method draft. Just open it up. That's all I had to do. And most times I wanted to keep going because I just got started. So
Yeah.
whether you get started for 30 seconds, for 2 minutes, whatever, it's just getting
Yeah.
started. And then you feel like you could build some momentum.
Yeah. And something like that, you got to know what you're creative. For me, I'm not going to be writing a book at 9 o'clock at night because by that point,
Right.
my mind's done. For
Right.
me, it's 5 o'clock in the morning when I get up. That's when I get my best thoughts. That's when I have my greatest thoughts. That would have to be how I would intentionally do it. So
Yeah. Know thyself, know what works for you, and then have some grace.
exactly.
Have some grace and
Yeah.
give yourself that gift. If it's 5 o'clock in the morning that you work best, commit to 10 minutes at 5 o'clock in the morning. Start small.
Okay. So if people want to check you out, here's your website. And when they go there, they'll learn a little bit more about what you are able to do for them.
Yep, they can learn a little bit more about how I can help them. They can schedule a complimentary call as well, and I can get on a Zoom with them and just have a conversation. Get to know some challenges and obstacles they might have, and map out a plan that can help them get to their goal.
If they want to reach out to you direct, they can also
Yep,
go ahead and just email you direct. And I saw before we got on there, I saw that your email link is also on your website as well.
it is. My website has my email link, phone number, yep, all contact info.
Okay. All right. Well, is there anything else before we are kind of coming, winding this down here? Anything else you'd like to share that we haven't gone over that you'd like to talk about?
I think we covered a lot. I think I would just to sum it all up based on the conversation that we had is to be more flexible in your approach and in your thinking and just kind of pay attention to how you feel. Follow the inspired ideas, take action on them even if you're only going to take a tiny step. But the important thing is to just get started and then build momentum.
Absolutely. Just build the momentum. And we've built some momentum here on the Imperfect Action live stream. I've really enjoyed this conversation. But you know what? If you're interested and you want to be a guest on the Imperfect Action live stream, you can as well. All you need to do is go ahead and schedule your date and time to appear on the Imperfect Action live stream. And we'll just have a little conversation. You can share your imperfect actions. You can share how it's changed you, how it's empowered you. Something else that can change and empower you is the virtual Friday whiskey hour. Nikki, you got to stop by this Friday and check this out. We always have some great conversations. Like I said, there's no requirement to drink whiskey. You put whiskey on there, people find that as a hook. The word whiskey just attracts people. I don't know why it is, but it does. It does. My And next Tuesday, I also host the Iron Sharpens Iron community. If you want to be part of that community as well, you can go ahead and stop on by. Just drop me a link and I can share all that information with you as far as how you can be. If you want to reach me direct, you can also just send me an email at rob@robfencetomaker.com. I would love to have a conversation with you. You can also schedule a complimentary conversation with me. Just go on my Calendly link and you can grab a 30-minute complimentary discovery conversation, or we can explore what it is you want to accomplish with your life, how you can start taking your imperfect action to become that best version of who you want to become, because that's what it's about. In order to become that version of who you want, you got to it requires action. I think you and I are both in alignment with that action is required for you to accomplish anything in this life.
Absolutely.
Nothing's impossible when you put your mind to it and we want to do things. And when you have that intention in doing so, great things can happen. Great things can become, what it is you want to be. And Doug, the whiskey hook always works for Doug. Yes, Doug, the whiskey hook always works. So Doug he's one of the core members of the virtual Friday whiskey hour. Actually, Doug, I've shared this several times. Doug is the one who was my impetus to go ahead and get this started. So
I love it. And now that I know I don't have to bring whiskey, I can come.
No, you can come. You can bring what you can bring. Drink whatever you want. You can drink water, drink Coke. You can drink beer. You could drink wine. I don't care. You don't even have to drink anything, but just come along and have the conversation. I think that's what's important.
Yeah.
There's always great connections. There's always great conversation to be had. So, but Nikki, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be on the Imperfect Action live stream. Do you have any parting shots before we go ahead and call this one a day?
Oh, first, I just want to thank you for having this conversation with me. And the only parting thought is that you are so much more capable than you think. So look inside. All the answers are there.
They are. You have those answers within you. And that's what both Nikki and I do. We help you to uncover what those answers are. So again, we're wrapping up another Tuesday edition of the Imperfect Action live stream. I'm glad you stopped by to share with us. Peace out.